Bienvenidos a New Dentists on the Block. Welcome to New Dentists on the Block, a podcast featuring new dentists sharing their experiences in the world of dentistry, successes, challenges, and life in between, navigating dentistry together one experience at a time. Happy Hispanic Heritage Month. Feliz Mes Nacional de la Herencia Hispana. On today's episode, we have Dr. Jossen Gastelum. That's right, the Dr. Jossen. Dr. Jossen is a passionate and influential dentist. Him and I had the opportunity to discuss our journey in dentistry and the importance of representation for Latinos in the profession. He shares his experience of graduating during the COVID-19 pandemic and the challenges he faced transitioning into private practice. Dr. Jossen highlights the significance of social media in connecting with others and promoting dental growth and dental education. We talk about our time in ASDA and how we cross paths, and he emphasizes the need for open conversations about burnout in the profession and the importance of an abundance mindset. Let's get to it. Dr. Jossen Gastelum, welcome to New Dentists on the Block. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. What about you?
I am so excited to finally connect with you. Jossen and I have tried to connect probably all year, and we haven't been able to. Technical difficulties, timing schedule. And so I'm absolutely excited to be connecting during this special month for us, Hispanic Heritage Month, which is an exciting time for all Hispanics everywhere. And I would say everyone across the country, because it's a way for us to kind of celebrate our culture and dive into maybe a culture that others don't really know about.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really important for us, especially as Latino dentists, to be able to represent in the field, especially. I don't know what the latest figures are, but the last time that I knew, it was like 5.9% of U.S. Dentists are Latino. So we're a small minority in there and growing every day. And it's always good to be a good representation.
Absolutely. And I know that both you and I are very passionate about seeing other Latinos grow in the profession and finding others who are interested in going into dentistry to help find avenues to help them kind of find their way into dental school and into the profession as well.
Yep, definitely.
Dr. Jossen, I would love if you would tell myself and our listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So I'm Dr. Jossen Gastelum. I graduated from University of Louisville back in 2020 during the pandemic. Beautiful time to graduate.
Oh, yeah.
So I've been practicing for a little bit over 3 years, almost 4 years. I started off actually practicing in Kentucky for a couple months just because during the pandemic, it made sense at that time. But then I ended up moving back to Arizona, which is where I'm from. I practiced in the Tucson, Arizona area, actually in Marana for about a little bit over 2 years there at a very nice private practice that taught me a lot that I know today. Just recently in the last 6 or 7 months, I decided to move up to the big city, up to Phoenix, Arizona area. This is where I've been practicing for the past 6 or 7 months. But really what I've been doing recently that has gotten more attention is the social media stuff. So I do TikTok, I do Instagram. It started off, very cheesy little educational videos and dances and all the cringy stuff that we love from social media dentists. But it has really turned into an amazing networking tool, a way to connect with pre-dental students, with dental students, possible patients. And yeah, it's been awesome.
Well, I have loved to watch your growth on social media, and it's exciting to see all the content that you put out. But before you were popular on social media, you and I met each other good old ASDA days at one of the annual sessions. I think it was, what was that, 16, 17?
It was the Disney one. And so that was my first ever time doing that. So during dental school, I was part of my local and the national chapter of the American Student Dental Association. In our case, it was called LASDA because Louisville ASDA. And so I did social media back then also because it was something that I was interested in at the time also. But when I did it, I think that it was, you had already become president. And so this was you giving your presidency over to Rupali, if I remember correctly. But yeah, I just, that's when we had met. And I just remember going to this event, at my dental school, I was the only Mexican-American student in my class. There were other Latinos in my class, but some of them were like Chilean or Cuban or Puerto Rican, but I was the only Mexican American one. And so when I got to see Tanya Sue, up there, it was pretty exciting for me. I kind of had like I was like fangirling over you, which is really funny. But yeah, it was just like a moment where it was really impactful for me. And I remember even like right after like seeing you like talk like up on the stage. We've never talked about this before because
we never have, yeah.
We never have, but I remember like texting my mom and be like, "Oh my gosh, mom, like the president of ASDA is a Mexican American, Latina." So yeah, it was a really special moment.
Yeah, when I was running and during my time, when I was running and before I won, I guess I'd never realized the impact that would make. And the amount of people that came up to me after I became president of ASDA when I won that day at ASDA as president, so many people came up to me and they were like, "Qué orgullo!" Like, we are so proud that somebody Hispanic, Latina is up there representing us. And, that week that you're running, it's kind of all chaos. And it kind of just hit me like, we need that representation. We need others to know that if they want to get involved in leadership, they absolutely can do that. And my mom and I always remember, because we remember when you came up to us to introduce yourself and we were so excited to meet you. And she often recalls and she'll ask me, "How is he doing?" I'm like, "He's doing great. We'll see him eventually if we ever go back to Arizona."
Eventually, actually, will happen.
Oh, I'm sure we'll cross paths at some point for sure.
Yeah. One of the major reasons why I decided to move up to Phoenix is that, so you were recently in Phoenix probably like a year or so ago. Do you remember this?
Yeah, yeah. So yes.
And so you had messaged me and you were asking like, "Oh, let's meet up," or whatever. And so this happened all the time, especially with like social media or just like my friends. Whenever people come to Arizona, they come to Phoenix or Scottsdale or, wherever the area is. And so I would get so many times where people would be like, "Hey, I'm coming to Arizona. Let's meet up." And I'm like an hour and a half away down in Tucson, Arizona. And sometimes I would be able to make it, I would actually like drive up, especially if it was like on a weekend or something. But during the weekdays, it just like was really difficult to make that happen. And so as I started seeing that growth happening more with social media, it just made more sense to be in the like capital city of the state.
Yeah, absolutely. I can remember messaging you that and saying, "Yeah, come visit us." And you were like, "Yeah, I can't. It's a weekday." And I was like, "Oh, bummer." But now that you're in Phoenix, in the Phoenix area, hopefully we'll make time to do that. But tell us a little bit about the practice you're in. And I think maybe you have some news to share.
Yeah. So I've always worked in private practice like settings. And that was just something that I had a specific like vision for the type of like dentistry that I was trying to provide. And I'm very into like aesthetics, and I got certified to do Botox and fillers and that kind of stuff. So it just made sense. But I got a really good opportunity to move up to Phoenix, and I was doing that for a little bit. But then recently I've had another opportunity to move up to another private practice, which is up in like the North Scottsdale area. And so I'm actually going to be doing this. I guess this is technically recorded in the past, but
right.
Maybe at this point, yeah. But I'll be starting that in October. So I'm really excited for the opportunity to try something a little bit different. It's always from every experience that you get new experiences from staff, new experiences from like the technology and the type of dentistry that you're doing. And so it's always a blessing to be able to do that. But yeah, speaking about your mom too, I always remember her too.
Oh, thanks. A lot of ASDA people always ask for her, and that always warms my heart because that's very nice. But
yeah, and actually, like one of the major things that I remember is that your mom was basically like at conferences with you. You would take her to travel with you, and that's something that I think I try to do a lot. Like if you follow me on social media at all, you see that I'm always taking my mom with me everywhere. And it's like really important because for us as first generation, I'm assuming you're first generation as well. First generation college graduates, first generation dentists in general, being able to like bring our parents to us to these events and kind of like let them experience things that they didn't necessarily get to experience because they were, working with us growing up, I think is a huge blessing. So that was something that, really stood out to me. Not only you being, Latina and everything, but just like seeing your connection with your mom just was really special.
Oh, thank you. And yes, it's super fun. I still take her to a lot of the conferences, and she has a ton of fun and loves to meet all the dentists. And, she's a huge advocate in everything that we do, and of course, everything that I do. So yeah, I completely agree. Just having the opportunity for both of us to experience it together is really, really fun. And, if we can, we always sneak away to get some shopping done. But a lot of people don't really understand that. I feel like being from with our heritage and with our background, like we really are very family oriented. But I would say that other cultures don't really understand that, which is really interesting.
It's huge. It's huge, and it's pretty funny because like within this whole time that I've been kind of moved back from dental school. So dental school was like really my first experience living outside of home. I always lived at home growing up. I went to University of Arizona, which is in Tucson. And so I was blessed that I was able to, spend that time with my mom. And so when I moved over to Kentucky for dental school, I was like living on my own. I had an apartment, that whole kind of thing. And so that was like really exciting. But then like during the pandemic, it kind of like reverted again because I moved back home and I was living at home. And so the whole purpose of moving up to Phoenix was like, to kind of get a little bit of independence again, it's really hard because I feel like as first generation students, and especially with our parents going through so much with us, you almost feel like guilty, like leaving the nest. But it's not really supposed to be anything personal, but us as first generation students, we just like take it like very personal all the time. And our parents, sometimes I feel like they do too. Even though they always want the best for us.
100%. And I have loved watching your travels with your mom, but the videos that you put up recently with your grandma, so sweet. I love that, she's still a part of your life and you're able to visit her. She's able to cook you meals, which is a beautiful thing and a delicious thing. But I think that that's so special that you are so open to sharing that with the world, which is really nice.
Yeah. And I get a lot of like super nice messages from people whenever I share it. And the purpose of me sharing it is obviously, I get to, show like my friends and everything, like what I'm doing. And I always, I get questions like from friends, like, hey, how's your mom doing? Or like, how's your grandma doing? But it's also like literally just like my own like personal diary. And I have it all in like archives, and it's just going to be like something really special to look back on.
Oh, absolutely. For sure. I'd like to kind of backtrack a little bit and talk about your experience of graduating during COVID, how that was for you and transitioning into private practice. Was it a huge leap for you? Did you feel like you were adequately trained to go into practice?
So whenever like the COVID pandemic kind of started, it was right around like March 2020. So in February was when we were about to go on like our spring break that we like never came back from, essentially. And at the time I was actually already done with my requirements. So I was already, kind of not necessarily like slowing down, but I was doing more procedures because like I wanted to learn versus like I'm just trying to get my requirements done. And so when the pandemic happened, obviously it's like a scary time because you don't, like, nothing's guaranteed. You don't know whether you're going to be like having a job, like what's going to happen. Things are like locking down. And I wasn't really like necessarily worried that I wasn't going to be able to graduate because I had the requirements done. But yeah, it was definitely like a scary time. And licensing was kind of like unsure. I hadn't taken my boards yet at the time. And then personally, like a lot of people like didn't really like, there were people that were not really concerned about like graduation or like the ceremony or anything like that. But for like me as a first generation student, it was a really huge deal to get the doctor title and to have my family come and see me walk across the stage and get that title. And for us, like our family is really close and big, and my mom's one of 8 siblings. And so like all of her siblings, like they were going to rent this big house in Louisville, and they were going to do a barbecue, and we were going to basically have like a party for a week, and they were all going to go to my graduation, and we were going to go to like the Derby, and, it was going to be this big old thing. And to see all of that, kind of like taken away was pretty sad. And it feels like, again, like you feel kind of guilty, feeling like that feeling of sadness or almost like I missed out on something. But
Sure.
especially with like, so many other things that happen with people being sick and people passing away. And it was just like a very like emotional time for everybody. But yeah, it's definitely something that I feel like I never got the opportunity to have that graduation. And so it's like something I'm always gonna like feel like FOMO for, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah, no, I totally get that.
So literally every time that there's graduations, it's like me and my classmates were always like talking about how we have like this sense like we didn't get closure. But in regards to practicing, since the pandemic was kind of complicated, I had to initially work in Kentucky for a couple of months until Arizona decided that they were going to accept like the mannequin boards that we were taking, which actually was a really interesting time because I remember when I was in ASDA, we were advocating for the mannequin boards. And then suddenly like the pandemic happens and I'm like, okay, now we're going to be forced to do it.
Now it's acceptable. Okay.
Now it's acceptable. It's crazy. But yeah, that was like a very interesting like turning point for, I guess, our profession in general. And I think a really good one, in order to stop people from using like live patient boards and, like the whole ethics of that. And in general, just like, taking away some of the stress for students in finding patients and all that kind of stuff. But of course, the mannequin boards themselves brought in new challenges, including like, standardization and like whether like, the tooth was actually realistic or not, and, all this kind of stuff. But yeah, I worked in Kentucky for a little bit, and then I ended up moving to Arizona, and basically one of the office that I ended up working at, I got the job via a classifieds on the state dental board page. And then at that office, I ended up being there for over 2 years, and it was like an amazing opportunity. I got to work with, all of the assistants that were there, all of the doctors that were there. But I also got to mentor a couple of like pre-dental students. Like I had one student that came into shadow, and she ended up, she's applying to dental school this year. And so I wrote a letter of recommendation for her. And yeah, it's just like, it feels like it's all gone by so quickly. Like I feel like very disconnected from like the dental school me, because, you just, I can't believe like the stuff that you can do now and like the stuff that, and like all the stuff that has changed. But at the same time, it doesn't feel like it's that long ago, which it's not, but yeah.
Time flies. I feel like the older we get, time just goes by so fast.
Yeah, definitely.
Since graduating, I know you shared that you enjoy, injectables and aesthetic cases. Have you taken any CE courses that you feel have really upped your game?
Yeah. So during the pandemic, I actually won a giveaway for an AJAD like biomimetics course. And that kind of changed the game, I guess, in general. I don't really do like a lot of like strict biomimetics anymore, but I think it changed the game in regards to like really understanding like adhesive protocols and like bonding and like everything that's possible with like our new like materials that we have available to us today. And so that was really something that I think reignited my passion for dentistry, because those first 6 months out of school, I don't know in your case, but those first 6 months of school are definitely, it's difficult, because in school we're used to working on, 2 or maybe 3 patients a day. And then suddenly you're in private practice and you have like your own schedule of like 8 to 12 patients, plus like all of the hygiene that you're kind of like juggling with. And so trying to make sure I was being able to see everybody within a good time was really difficult. And then just, diagnosing quickly was difficult. And so at first I had kind of like a little burnout period where I was like kind of hating dentistry. And it's weird because you graduate and nobody talks about it. Like nobody wants to like admit that they're like maybe not super happy with the field or like they're struggling or anything like that. And so yeah, I like went through that period where I was kind of like struggling a little bit. And I did the course and started really like implementing these adhesive protocols in my practice. And we had like abrasion, my Mexican accent is coming out a little bit. We had air abrasion units in every operatory. And so the owner dentist at this office kind of like really embraced that and let me do that. And it got me really excited about dentistry again. And so I started posting stuff onto Instagram, and I would get messages from people that were interested in it. And even got to message with a couple of classmates where I got to talk about like the struggles, and we're realizing that, the struggles that we go through are like very common, and just like nobody likes to talk about them. Yeah.
You mentioned two very important points here. Well, the first one may not be super important, but biomimetic dentistry is something that I feel very passionate about as well too. I find joy in dentistry because a lot of these protocols, and it kind of just makes sense. I feel like in dentistry, I kind of was just going through the motions and didn't really understand the why. Maybe I understood it to answer some test questions, some board questions, but not really exactly 100% what I was doing. And so I took a Najat course as well. I took a Schiffenhaus, his online platform when it first came out, and I absolutely loved it. And overlays, have really changed my life and bring me joy. I prefer to cut an overlay than I do a crown. But those principles are really cool. I feel like if you are looking for more of a reason as to why you're doing dentistry, those are two great platforms to look into. They're really informative, and they're two great people that really take time out of their day to answer different questions from people who are interested in biomimetic.
Yeah, I think like in general, not necessarily like with the biomimetics in general, but having like feeling like good about the quality of your work like changes everything, because then you can like show your patients and you can like explain to them what you're doing. Definitely those protocols just made me a better dentist overall.
100%. But burnout is the second point that you mentioned, and burnout is very, very active in our profession, and not something that I feel like we're speaking about enough. I think that we're doing a better job. I think as of late, especially our generation, we're more cognizant and kind of more active in having these conversations and kind of creating a support network. But I still feel like we as a profession need to continue to do more because there are a lot of people who don't know their place in dentistry and definitely feel burnout and really don't want to be involved in the profession. So
yeah, I think really the first person that I kind of like saw talking about it like a lot more openly was Dr. Avi. I don't know if I think he's been on the podcast before, right?
He was,
Doctor. Yeah. So I've seen him like really kind of like embracing it and like talking about it, and people are really like celebrating him for it. And it's definitely something that people like in general don't talk about. And I think that the culture in dental school is very like, that gunner culture where everybody is like trying to not like really share information with each other, not really like give too much information. And in reality, I think that the major thing that we have to learn, and it's something that I just took a course with Dr. James Heaton and Dr. Michael Allen, which is called Smile Trend, which is actually like, this is not a plug, by the way, but that's where I got this white coat. But they were talking about this concept of like abundance mindset, which is basically where you think that, there's a lot for you to give and a lot for you to receive from the world. And so in reality, if you change your mindset and stop thinking of everybody as like competition or thinking of everybody as like somebody that's going to get in your way, you can see everybody as like humans and people that are, available to receive energy from you and you to like give energy to them. I think that it really changes everything with regards to how you view not only the type of work that you're doing, the stuff that you're sharing with your colleagues, the stuff that you're learning from them. I think it makes us all better dentists.
Yeah, absolutely. I read something, which means I probably saw a TikTok on it, that said it was somebody saying like, when you start celebrating the accomplishments and the joys of your fellow peers, your life becomes a lot better, as opposed to seeing them as a threat or a competition because maybe they're taking better steps or advancing a lot faster than you are. I think that for dentistry, you really got to stay in your lane, find inspiration from others to try and be better and grow yourself in your practice. But know that your practice of dentistry is the way that you're practicing, and you will continue to grow at your own pace.
Which is why I've been like really loving like social media dentistry in general and like the whole world that this is, because I've met like so many people that I I would have never known otherwise if I hadn't gone into like social media that have like different perspectives, all have like different things to share. My friend, Dr. Stephen Liu, he was a public health dentist previously, and now he just switched over to private practice. And him and I connected via social media. We kind of like talked. We ended up going to the American Dental Association conference in Vegas together. That was the first time we ever met. We were friends for like 2 years before then. And we're like suddenly like sharing like a hotel room and like hanging out. And like when we met, we had like this instant connection. Like we were like friends for years. It wasn't like awkward. He's still one of like my best friends. And it's like a social media friendship that I made. And so I think that in general, like all of us coming together on via the internet and sharing with each other, it has really opened up like a whole new world for our generation of dentists.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. Instagram University, as they call it, right? And we're all just kind of students in it. And I used to think that, I would learn so much more from an individual post, which I do, but then it kind of leads me into reading like more articles and learning more, like your xylitol post that we kind of went into a deep dive about.
Definitely.
But that is definitely a conversation for another day because I still don't know.
We'll have to do an updated podcast for that.
For sure. Absolutely. Absolutely. I am curious, in your future, do you foresee yourself buying a practice?
Yeah. So definitely. That's something that I recently actually even considered doing. I kind of slowed down on the buying a practice aspect because we had like a personal thing with my mom where she had a cancer scare. It was actually like a thyroid cancer scare, which coincidentally also just made me even more interested in, the importance of our like oral health, oral cancer screenings and all that kind of stuff. But I kind of slowed things down a little bit because of like stuff that was going on at home and just trying to make sure that I was there for my family. Again, we talked about the importance of family in general. I know everybody cares about their family, but especially Latino families, we're very, very close with our family members. And if they need us to help them out, we're going to be there. Even if it means my mom's moving in with me or anything like that. And so that was kind of like all running through my head. And it's the reason why I kind of like slowed down on doing it, but it's still something that I'm very interested in. Hopefully within the next like year or so, we'll see how things go. Obviously I'm just about to start at a new practice and they're actually aware that I had, been potentially searching to open my own practice at some point. And so I don't know if from that, like there will be like a partnership opportunity at some point we discussed, but I don't know if that's going to really happen. I don't know what the future is going to look like. So I'm kind of taking it step by step, but it's definitely, I think that ownership is the only way that we can really, do the dentistry that you want to do, because ultimately whenever you're working for somebody else, you're limited based off of what they want to do for their office, the culture that they want to set up for their office. And the only way to really control that is to be the one that's controlling everything, calling the shots. And so it's a really good opportunity. Not everybody is going to be, wanting to do ownership. And for some people, being an associate is what they want to do. And it's what works for them. But yeah, that's definitely something that I see in my future.
Super excited to see what's to come for you. And I hope that the health of your mom is stable, and we'll send her good thoughts and prayers for sure.
Actually, we got so blessed. We had so many prayers from like my friends and family. Like I'm saying, like Dr. Stephen Liu, actually, he was one of my good friends that I like. You never expect to like make friends like via social media, and suddenly they're like praying for your family, and he was like checking in and stuff like that. And she ended up having a biopsy. It ended up being benign. She's still not like completely out of the blue. They're going to have to do another biopsy in a year, but we got really blessed with a benign finding. So
thank God. And that's beautiful to hear that Stephen and his family was praying for your family. I think that's wonderful, and the beauty of community. Well, Jossen, you and I could probably talk for hours on end, I'm sure. But before we take off, I would love to leave a message to our Hispanic and Latino listeners. Jossen, para ti, ¿por qué eres orgulloso de ser Latino, hispano en nuestra profesión?
Yeah. So funny story about that. my name is, so people usually thought it was like Josen or something like
Yeah,
that. It's
I'm
just
like,
it's
yeah.
Jossen,
Jossen. Okay.
Jossen, yeah. Jossen, para mí la comunidad hispana y representar es muy importante porque pues somos una comunidad grande, somos una comunidad de personas muy trabajadoras, de personas que son muy de familia y para mí es un orgullo ser un dentista, un doctor y poder enseñar mi representación in dentistry. I'm like, it's weird being like I'm not a no sabo kid. I made a video on this recently. I'm not a no sabo kid, but cuando intentas hablar en términos así muy profesionales, hay veces que es difícil, ¿no? Pero de todas maneras, para toda la gente que, por ejemplo, como mi mamá que tienen acentos y que sabes que cuando miran a una persona que se parece a ellos, es algo muy especial poder conectar con ellos. Así que para mí por eso es muy importante ser una representación.
Nosotros estamos muy orgullosos de ti y estamos esperando para ver lo que viene en tu futuro.
Gracias.
Dr. Jossen, thank you so much for your time. If our listeners would like to connect with you, what's the best way?
So at Dr. Jossen, it's all together, no spaces, Jossen. My mom decided to be very unique with our names there. So at Dr. Jossen on TikTok, Instagram, even like YouTube Shorts, although I don't really like post on there, but yeah.
Very cool. Thanks so much again for your time, and we'll catch everyone next time.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of New Dentists on the Block. Gracias por escuchar este episodio de New Dentists on the Block. If you're not following him already, be sure to follow Dr. Jossen on TikTok and on Instagram at Dr. Jossen. We look forward to continuing to celebrate Hispanic Heritage Month, not only during this month, but throughout the entire year. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube and on all major podcast platforms. I would love if you would leave a review of the podcast. If you have a new dentist you would like to recommend for the podcast, be sure to send an Instagram message to @NewDentists on the Block. And be sure to follow me on Instagram at tsmaestas.dds. We'll catch you next time.